Today we're going to talk all about Amazon PPC with Will Hare. Will, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Nathan?
Doing great. For those of you that don't know, Will is an advertising manager with Bobsled Marketing and responsible for the management and growth of client accounts on Amazon. He's a certified Google partner, and as a digital marketer, his portfolio includes companies like Up Global, One Way Limo, and the Smithsonian Channel. He's worked on different capacities, supporting digital marketing efforts for startups and businesses of all sizes. He's metrics-driven and a proponent of the lean analytical system of marketing, which we are going to talk all about. And I know you have an awesome presentation for us today. But before that, why don't we take a gigantic step back? How did you get into Amazon PPC? How did you get into Google PPC originally? Was that always what you wanted to do?
Yeah, man. So thanks for having me. Great intro. So I've always really been in the marketing. So my background actually, was in the military, got out of the military, went to school full-time, Quinnipiac. I know we're alumni. And I was working in the power industry at the same time. So I learned a lot about engineering and processes and process management, looking at analytics. And then from there, I've always been into business, into entrepreneurship, and that's what I got my degree in from Quinnipiac. So pretty much right when I left QU, I jumped ship to work with a couple of guys I went to college with at Checkmate Digital, and we were selling marketing services, application development, and design work. And so I did that for a little over 2 years, and we grew that business from like 5 guys in a basement to around 17 guys. And I decided I wanted to dive deeper into Google AdWords and analytics. And so I ended up working with a company called One Way Limo, which was a marketplace for filling empty legs for limo companies, as well as giving customers discounts on their rides. So went there, built that company out. So we got investment from a local VC. And within a year, we went from 3 states up on the East Coast to the entire East Coast in California, and we ended up grossing over $1 million. So we doubled in size, and a lot of what we did there was focusing on acquisition, so Google AdWords, and doing display advertising, and just getting on as many magazines and postcards and like everything you could possibly try to drive traffic, but also improving their retention. So setting up email marketing campaigns and running different promotions. So learned a lot there. And from there, I was like, man, this was my first taste of like an e-commerce business. So I'm like, let me dive deep. And I really wanted to learn about Amazon, because I think Amazon's an arbitrage. My opinion is that, especially people our age in the millennial demographic, we are doing our shopping through Amazon. For me, it's interesting. I'm working with another vendor who sells some cookies. And the first place I went to was Amazon before I even went to their website. And it's because I want the 2-day shipping. I'm taking advantage of my Prime membership. So for a lot of these, exactly. And so for a lot of these companies, like that's where it's at. So after my stint working with One Way Limo, I took an opportunity here with Bobsled Marketing. And I've been here a little over a year. I manage clients of all sizes, all different types of products and categories. The only caveat is I don't work with third-party sellers. You have to own the brand in order to really have an impact. If not, you're really just competing for the lowest price, and that's a tough market to be in because it's margin driven. So who's your manufacturer, right? And so from there, I've just been grinding out hardcore Google ads and hardcore Amazon ads, and it's been a truly great experience.
Awesome. Let's talk a little bit about PPC. We're in 2019 when we're recording this right now. What are you seeing that's working for bigger sellers, and what do you see that maybe worked in the past that's not working?
Oh yeah, sure. So what works really well is obviously being brand registered. So that's the number one thing. I work with a lot of people that launch on Amazon and they just want to put their toes in, and then they're like, oh, why aren't I getting any sales? And it's like, you only have 4 products, you have no validation, meaning you don't have any reviews, you don't have nice pictures, you haven't optimized your content for sales, so you don't have your title with keywords in it, you don't have your bullets that are have call outs in them and that are riddled with keywords using natural language. And so, the customer experience on Amazon needs to be the same as your website. And I think that's a disconnect for somebody who's trying to sell on Amazon and they're trying to figure out like, what am I doing wrong? And so advertising is an indirect mechanism to get exposure. So if you have all these other fundamental pieces in place and then you're doing advertising, you're going to rock it. But if you're missing one or the other, then it's an inadequate experience. And what I love to see, like this is how I target people. If you're advertising something that has 1 star, you're just throwing money out the window. Like, don't waste anybody's time. Nathan, do you buy anything less than 3 stars?
No, definitely not. It's funny. I bought a new cable, like one of the chargers for my phone, and I don't know what I did. I've been selling on Amazon since 2008. I know Amazon, and I must have clicked on the wrong thing, and it showed up, and it broke after a week. And I went back, and it had 2 stars, and was like, why would I ever buy something with 2 stars? How did that even happen? It just baffled me. So you're completely right. Anything below 3 stars, unless you make a huge mistake like I did, no one's going for it.
And that's how they got their 1 sale a month. So there you go. Accidentally clicking on the add to cart button.
So let's dive into it. Unless you want to talk about anything else before the presentation, I'd love to see what you have to offer. I know my audience is a lot of big time e-commerce sellers, and they want to hear what's working with PPC and how they can get better at it.
All right. So we just have Amazon advertising, some basic principles here. So a little bit about myself. How long I've been involved in PPC. We kind of went over this, 6 years. What do I enjoy most about advertising on Amazon? And it's really just helping businesses grow, doing a little detective work. You can always point to something on the listings. That's why you're unable to drive growth, and it's fun to kind of put on the detective hat and take advantage of that. Favorite pushback we get from clients is, why should I pay for brand terms? So this is something we hear all the time, and we have a defensive offensive principle here at Bobsled. So if you're not playing defense, somebody else is going to be stealing your competitors because they're going to be on the offense. And what's a favorite campaign I've run to date? I have a brand called Adderbella, and they were hands down my favorite brand I've ever worked with. And if you guys are watching on your computer, if you guys jump onto Amazon right now, just search Adderbella pillows. They sell these really interesting throw pillows that are like of colonial dogs and cats in fancy dresses that go for like $90 a pop, and people buy them and they love them. So hands down, one of my favorite clients I've ever worked with. And so jumping on, so why PPC ads on Amazon? And just so rough data, Amazon represents over 15% of online shopping experiences. Amazon has a 70% conversion rate. And really, Amazon is like the mecca of where online shopping happens. So I like to throw this stat out there, is that 52% of all US e-commerce sales come from Amazon. So that's just a tremendous number. So there's lots of potential on there, but at the same time, it's a marketplace. So there's lots of competition. So having the best products and the best listings and just being a great quality service provider really helps drive growth and helps you tap into that potential of Amazon. So real quick, just let's talk about the ad auction and the experience on Amazon. So fundamentally, how does Amazon advertising work? And so really, really simple is that it's a keyword targeted system, and Amazon uses this criteria to discover the eligibility of your product. So 2 bidders essentially enter into an Amazon ad auction by placement, and Amazon will take into consideration corresponding bids, but also the historical performance, which demonstrates the likelihood of that ad meeting the needs of the consumer and leading to a purchase. So something that's really interesting is that Amazon is customer focused. So they're always going towards a sale. And I hear this a lot from vendors and sellers, like they want to provide a great experience to you guys, but you're a secondary component. Like their number one focus are the people who actually shop on their platform. And the second way that ads populate is that the overall goal is to increase performance metrics for Amazon to recognize that your ad is the most likely to lead to a sale. So the KPIs that are most important to maintain, to increase, and to manipulate is your click-through rate, and that determines your relevance of your ad, and your conversion rate, which is how often you're converting based on these search terms. So those metrics are really how ads populate and how your ads populate. So I have an ad auction example here, but a seller A has a bid of 25 cents with a conversion rate of 8% and a click-through rate of 2%, while seller B has a bid of 75%, conversion rate of 3%, and a click-through rate of 0.6%. So you can see that obviously ad A has although it's a lower bid, they just have a better user experience, and therefore seller A is going to win, and they're going to spend 25 cents on that bid. As opposed to in scenario B, seller A has a bid of about 65% with an ad that has a conversion rate of 8% and a click-through rate of 2%, as opposed to seller B, who has a 55-cent bid, a conversion rate of 8%, but a lower click-through rate at 1%. So A will win, and they'll be charged just a penny more for being the second highest bidder. And so myth and fact, the higher bids doesn't necessarily mean more sales. It has to do with your conversion rate and your click-through rate. And so fact, nurturing your ad data over time while slowly increasing or decreasing your bids will help lead to an efficient and way of driving revenue. So by 60 days, your campaign should be performing pretty optimally. So real quick, just got to talk about keyword match types and themes. So there are 3 different match types that we can use on Amazon. And so we have our broad, similar to Google, which will match really any query that contains any of the words that you're bidding on. Phrase match, which will contain the words in a particular order that you're bidding on, but it'll add different words on the end or the beginning in order to optimize for it. And then exact will be only a specific query written a certain way. And so, for example, all natural deodorant, a broad match might pull Old Spice. A phrase might pull all natural deodorant for women. An exact match will be all natural only. And so to give you guys some perspective, broad match will generally be a lower cost per click, but it'll generate a lot of irrelevant search terms. So you get a lot of crap, which is fine. It's a great way to discover what keywords outside of the norm are you're converting on. A phrase match lets you still cast a pretty wide net, but have some control over that. So it's a great way to maintain like a mediocre ROI and to still have a presence around certain keywords. So instead of writing all natural deodorant for women, for men, for boys, for girls, whatever else, you could just have all natural deodorant as a phrase match, and it will pull for those particular keywords. And then exact match, these are usually, if you make something exact match, these are usually your terms that are converting the best, performing the best, and are going to have the best ROI. So you really want to double down on these. They tend to be the most expensive, but they're most likely going to lead to a sale. And so these are the difference between a broad match with generic terms, which usually have a higher volume, as I mentioned, but a less defined audience at the click. So tablet, you can see the sponsored ad that shows up as a tablet for a kids versus a second version that's a tablet for an adult. So just trying to figure out based on your shopping hazard what to present you. And jumping on to keyword themes. So this is what I love, and this is how I build my ad groups once we actually get going. And so what we like to use at Bobsled is something called a user intent funnel. And so looking at the keywords from the bottom of the funnel, these are your brand terms. Somebody searching your brand is more likely going to purchase your product, so they're already exposed to your brand. The second tier up is going to be your product terms, and these are keywords that are just super relevant to your product. So if you sell, deodorant, deodorant as a product term is probably going to be pretty relevant, as opposed to maybe a deodorant spray or antiperspirant spray, which would be less common. So that might go up to a complementary product or competitor product. Jumping up to the next one, product terms. Above that is competitor terms. So these are just competitors in your marketplace. It's great to be on an attack and go after their search terms. Substitutable products are products that somebody else might use instead of your product. So back to my example of somebody who used maybe a roll-on deodorant as opposed to a spray deodorant, and it really depends on what your product does. So it's important that when you're identifying what my product is that you're honest to what your product is. It can't be everything to everyone, and the data will show it. You'll have a higher conversion rate traditional deodorant, as opposed to if you're not selling a spray version, but you're bidding on it, you're likely to get not that great of a return. Complementary products are products that have a strong association with your product. My favorite analogy is just hot dogs and hot dog buns. Can't have one without the other. Same thing, condiments, so ketchup, mustard, sauerkraut, kind of how you like your dogs. And last but not least are the audience terms. And I have them at the top of the funnel, but they can really be throughout the funnel. And these are what I consider like discovery terms. So what's the best deodorant? How do I use this deodorant? This is a lot more relevant for like Google searches, but people do search like best X product or, closest product to Y if they're looking at like competitors. So talk a little bit about our PPC optimization process. So when I talk to clients, I like to talk about the Amazon advertising triangle. So what people think it's very linear. If I gave you $10,000, you could do a 25 to 30% ACOS. And that's not necessarily true because we just have market forces working. And so when we're looking at advertising, there's a couple methodologies. So if my goal is to be as efficient as possible, generally it's going to result in a decrease in spend, but an improvement in advertising cost of sale, which is the metric we use to measure efficiency. If I want to expand and improve sales velocity, I'm going to spend more money because I'm going to go after some of these other keywords in our keyword theme. So I'm going to target these keywords that are just higher up in the funnel that aren't going to convert as well, but I want to have a presence because I can afford that. And that's a way to drive incremental growth on Amazon. And why do people do that? They want the halo effect. They want to increase their organic ranking. They want to improve their organic sales. And advertising is an indirect mechanism to influence that. And an approach that we usually recommend for like everybody we work with pretty much is a hybrid model. And that's incremental growth. So usually depending on the time of year, we'll recommend increasing our budget or going after some type of expansion for a 30-day period and then taking that next month and just optimizing it, cleaning it up, removing the fat, if you will, and then starting that process all over again. And so that's kind of the advertising triangle. And it's a great way that when you're thinking of advertising on Amazon and what that looks like, if you're launching a product, do your first 60 days, figure out what your baseline is, figure out what works and what doesn't, and then start considering a strategy. Based on my margins, can I afford to expand, or can I eat it for 3 months and do an expansion strategy to see where that leads my sales and then clean it up? If I'm somebody who's a small business and just has a tight budget and wants to be optimization focused, then how low can you get my ACOS? But consider you'll hit a point where you're just at market demand. Like you won't be able to drop below 20%. Otherwise, you're just not getting any impressions and you're only bidding on branded terms, which, you should bid on branded terms, but it's not really a way to grow on Amazon. So jumping on to the next slide, talking a little bit about our optimization process. So when I talk about optimization, because we do this once a week, but we're always talking about it. What does it look like to optimize an account? And any good advertising specialist does this to some degree. And essentially what they're doing is they're going in on the keyword level in your ad groups and they're looking at zero sales keywords. So what keywords are we bidding on? What keywords are spending money within a certain threshold? Like it would be foolish to pause a keyword that has spent maybe $2, 100 impressions and like a click. It just hasn't had enough time to mature. But if you're spending on something that's generated maybe $50 and spend zero sales over a 60-day period with 1,000 impressions and a low click-through rate, that's probably something you don't want to bid on anymore. So part of our optimization process is to just look at the zero sales, low potential keywords. These are keywords with a low click-through rate. Generally, what that points to is relevance. So if you're bidding on these keywords and you're just not getting the click-through rate, then if they're spending within a certain threshold that doesn't make sense, kill them or reduce the bids to 20% and just collect or get the serves as they come up at that really, really low bid. The next way we look at it, cycle 3, is profitability. So we look at keywords, whether they're operating above 100% ACOS, between 50 and 100, and then between 20 and 50. And it's kind of figuring out, it's going to be different for each client, but like, where's your profitability? And then optimizing your campaign, like granularly reducing the bids so that the keywords that are converting will eventually all be profitable or aggregately be profitable. Because it's okay to have a couple keywords that maybe convert at 40% ACOS and they're really relevant and they are driving some sales. If you could support it with some stronger keywords that are converting at maybe 5 or 10%, and that's really making sure that you're staying profitable at an aggregate level. And then over optimization. So this is where we look at keywords that had potential and we reduce them to make them to take them out as a negative keyword, or to reduce the bids too much where they no longer are picking up impressions. And so we go back in, we'll either increase the bids or add them back as keywords and just manipulate the bids. So a little bit about campaign optimization. And then a PPC optimization strategy. So on top of doing these optimization cycles, which is something you should do weekly, we do look at keyword bid adjustments. And so, really high level, we adjust our bids looking at the click-through rate and the conversion rate. So something that is not converting very well, but is still relevant and is not hitting our cost per acquisition, will incrementally reduce that bid on that particular item until it's within an acceptable threshold. And if we cannot hit that threshold, then we'll just negate that keyword and stop bids. But we'll also increase it on the other hand, that if it's converting really well, has a really low ACOS, but isn't performing very well, or is performing very well, we'll increase the bids to occupy more market share around that keyword. And it gives us the opportunity to kind of double down on what's working and kind of inch back on what's not working. And this is part of that incremental strategy mentioned in the previous slides. Keyword harvesting. This is, I think a lot of people do this, but it definitely works. And that's having automatic campaigns as well as category ads they now have that are really broad and used as discovery mechanisms, and then taking those keywords and adding them into manual campaigns. And so the premise is that you cast a really wide net. You figure out what you're populating for and what the customer's behavior is on Amazon, and then you slowly funnel them into more and more specific ad groups. So you're getting keywords that are working, you're putting them into a converting keyword group or a product keyword group, adding them as exact match, and you're increasing that bid so that this keyword drives sales, and you're maximizing the value on that by increasing the bids and having that inside your campaigns. Jump it on to the next. So as mentioned before, keyword negation is something we do pretty regularly. If it's not relevant, you should just take it out. If it's not selling very well and you reduce the bids as much as you can, you should take it out. And it's just a way of keeping your campaigns really clean and running tight. And so you can see here, 100% pure olive oil. We have an organic olive oil that actually shows up. And we also have the moisturizer, which is showing up in these sponsored brands. So you have your sponsored brand ads, that's actual olive oil. And then the two sponsored product ads below are for face and hand use. So you can see that those aren't really relevant. And so 100% pure olive oil is probably not something somebody's searching who's looking for skincare or skincare products. So this is an opportunity for both these brands to remove it from their advertising campaigns. And real quick, talking about new ad types, as of 2000 or Q4 2018 into 2019, Amazon has just made a ton of changes to their dashboards. And so if you're running automatic campaigns, historically, you should consider pausing them and updating them to the new automatic targeting types. And so Amazon has given us the ability through their automatic campaigns to adjust based on what it considers close match, complementary match, loose match, and substitutable, similar to our keyword theme. So Amazon has caught on. And we have the ability to manipulate the bids on those particular match type or pause them altogether. And so what ends up, we like to, you always experiment. So with most of our clients, we run it all. We give it 60 days to see what works and what doesn't. And then 9 times out of 10, we're usually pausing loose match and substitutable and keeping close match and complementary on. But that's not to say that works for everybody. And there are circumstances where loose match crushes it, and sometimes close match doesn't work as well. So it's something to keep in mind, but it's just more levers for us to pull on the advertising side of things to make sure that we're driving the most value. Another major change is product targeting ads. So now we have the ability to target competitor ads. And this goes to that offensive defensive strategy. So anybody on AMS in the past is used to product display ads. But now it's kind of rolled out in a different version for Seller Central. Although we don't get the 50 characters a copy, we're able to target competitors in an offensive strategy and protect our listings in a defensive strategy, which gives us the ability to just show up more. And so you're showing up on the product detail page underneath the description where they have sponsored products and also recommended products. So it's a great opportunity to just have a presence on your competitors and also to protect your page. So the more real estate you take up on your product detail page, the less likely somebody is going to come and steal it away. Negative ASIN targeting. This is something they had in 2016 and they brought back. So now you have the ability to add in a negative product ASIN so that you're in these automatic campaigns, you'll see the asterisk and it's an ASIN. It means you showed up on their product detail page. And what was frustrating is that there was no way to negate these. So there were certain pages you just showed up on all the time and it never converted, so it wasted a lot of money. And so now we have the ability to add those in and another optimization tactic we have at our disposal. And last but not least, they have the dynamic bid management, which they're kind of working out. Done some experiments with it. It's it's an upgrade from Bid Plus, and it's tough. So we generally are sticking with fixed bids and managing it ourselves. Personally, I don't think it has worked out too great in our favor, but always a proponent of just experimenting and letting the data dictate what works and what doesn't. But similar to Google, I generally don't like to let the person making the most money control my bids on my products. And some tools we use in-house. Merchant Words is great for keyword research. Same thing with Keyword Inspector. PPC Scope. So if you're a novice when it comes to doing advertising, Brian Johnson has some great literature on how to maintain your account, and his software for any Seller Central client is really affordable and a great way to scale. We have a duplicate words remover, which will help eliminate any words that repeat in your campaigns. And PrestaZone is a little bit more of an expensive tool, but it really has some great management. If you check out their blog, they have some great philosophies on like isolating keywords and using different methodologies to improve your sponsored brand ads, which PPC Scope doesn't have, but also your sponsored product ads. And a quick facts section on PPC Scope, but I'm sure you can hear landscapers who have incredible timing. So when you're looking at your research term reports, the ASINs, why do ASINs show up? They're showing up from your automatic campaigns. And it's like I mentioned before, where you're actually showing up on somebody's product detail page. An asterisk sign means it's associated with an automatic campaign. How long does it take for advertising to start seeing performance? Generally within 6 weeks, gives you enough time to kind of grow that out. Is bidding on a competitor's brand name against Amazon's policy? Definitely not. It's a marketplace that could welcome the competition. And is lowering ACOS while growing sales for PPC possible? Yes, it's something that happens, and there's usually an occurrence like this. But for the most part, looking at the advertising triangle, you're generally not going to be lowering ACOS and increasing sales. It's generally one or the other. And other ASIN sales are when consumers click on your ad but purchase another ASIN. And brand attributed sales are sales that come from your brand. So that's the new brand metrics that Amazon has made available. So you know how many people are returning customers versus new customers. And that is it for the presentation. So pretty heavy.
Yeah, and we actually have Brian Johnson on an earlier episode of the podcast, so he dropped some great PPC knowledge as well, and PPC Scope is a good tool. I really appreciate you coming on. Where do you see PPC heading? Is there anything that's coming up that people might be surprised about?
Definitely. So what's really interesting, it's been really cool, is the display beta that they've been rolling out inside the account. So, in the long run, I see it becoming more and more like Google AdWords, where you have all these different facets to advertise. But as of now, and if you have it available, I recommend testing it out. They have a display beta they've been rolling out in Seller Central. very limited control on what we can do on our end. But it's, delivered some great results. And what it does, it allows you to show up on Amazon properties that are not directly associated with Amazon. So IMDb, some applications, and you show up as display ads. And they'll pull the information from your particular web page and use that to populate the actual ad. And so the person who gets exposed to the display ad has already clicked on your product detail page. So there's already some interest. So it's a great way to capture that extra traffic. And I can see that rolling out within the next year. It seems like as Q4 approaches, they start giving us new toys as advertisers to play with. So I can see some type of display mechanism rolling out here pretty shortly. That doesn't require like a $35,000 investment for AMG.
Right. This has been great. Where can people find out more about you, and what are you most excited about for the rest of the year?
Yeah, so they can find me at will@bobsledmarketing.com. You can definitely reach out there. And of course, I'm on LinkedIn, Will Hare. And what am I most excited for this year? Really Prime Day. I mean, now at July, they haven't officially announced it, but you guys should be starting to get ready, get your inventory ready, getting your items in place. If you're considering launching any products, launch them now, run some coupons, because Prime Day, there's a lot of preparation. Super excited, and it's a great opportunity for sellers to just get some sales in, because I know summer is generally a lull period for a lot of sellers.
Awesome. Thanks again, Will. Have a good rest of the week.
You too. Thanks, Nathan.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for watching. Did you enjoy this content? If so, click like, leave us a comment, and subscribe to our channel so we can continue bringing you great content all about hiring.